Jackson Warfield's game room.
Congratulations, you got a game night on the calendar. Or maybe you're just having a family get together and you're gonna bust out a game. Or maybe you're just gonna bring a copy of Ticket to Ride because there's a group of drifters down the street. The reason why you have a game night doesn't matter. I'm gonna help you pull it off. Jackson Warfield here with Jackson Warfield's game room. I've held dozens of game nights over the course of my life. I would hope I would. How else are these gonna get played? But I've learned a lot. Boiled down my lessons to what I call the 3 C's of hosting a board game night. We're going to run through them so you can use them to make sure your game night's a success. First C. Wait, hold on. The first C is for crowd. The first thing you want to consider is the actual crowd that you're going to have for your game night. You're going to want to look at people a number of different ways. First way you want to look at it, you want to think about who your bad apple is. Now, this is going to be someone who is likely to be playing your game and is the most likely to become disenchanted during the course of the game night. The most likely to say is like, what's going on here? This isn't that fun, or to start complaining. Unfortunately, this person could be someone whose dissatisfaction could be a little bit contagious too. What you want to do to handle your bad apple, and you know who it is, and maybe there's a silly reason why they're coming, but nonetheless, they're going to be there. The way you want to handle your bad apple is by trying to put in the minimum effort necessary just to make sure that they just don't submarine the entire game night. This is a really fun way to start the video, huh? Fun for a game night. Just gonna keep the jerks at bay. What you do is think about what they're likely to expect at the game night. They're expecting to have a raucous party, and then you bust out Agricola, be complaining a little bit. So you want to just keep that in mind. But they're not the only one coming to your game night, thankfully. The second person in your crowd you want to consider strongly is the person who's likely to have the most fun. So this is someone that I like to call the golden child. When I think about your golden child, and think about what you can do so that your golden child has as much fun as possible. And hopefully your golden child is someone who, when they're having fun, it's contagious. Or maybe this is a board gamer that likes games just as much as you do. Maybe it's someone that's just has a great personality and it's just fun to be around and tends to make things more fun. Think about the golden child and put most of your effort there. You don't want to put all of your effort into appeasing your bad apples, because just because your bad apple has a mediocre time, you don't want to sacrifice everyone else having a great time just to keep them up more than you need to. You want to do the minimum necessary for your bad apple, and then try to make your golden child have the best night of their life, because they're more likely to invite people to come. If you're talking about a board game night that you're trying to get friends or strangers to come to, maybe it's at a board game store, you want them to be like your hype man. Your hype man when you go decide to say at a get-together, let's bust out a game. You want them to be on your side, so pay more attention to your golden child. Last thing to think about with your crowd is the crowd dynamics. You want to think about how well everyone knows each other. A family get together and you have grandma with your 14-year-old cousin. Maybe you don't bust out Fun Employed, especially not the uncensored version, because of where that might go. That might cause you to lose some credibility in terms of determining what to do after dessert at future family get-togethers. But maybe do bust that out if you have some coworkers and it tends to be a little more of a free-flowing environment socially at the bar after work. Or if you are doing it with coworkers and people are more cordial, more polite, I'm used to this type of a crowd, you want to go with something, again, that maybe can push the edge a little bit if it's in terms of being funny social situations, but you don't want anyone to be feel like they're forced to be overly social. It's one thing to be social because you're playing in a board game. Board games do that. They're like a social lubricant in a way. But taking to the point where you're, say, improvising or acting is like another level. Actually, accusing people of being liars, that's another level too. You want to be aware of that. So consider your crowd and just imagine the game being played and imagine how it's going to turn out before you bring it up. Don't just say, this is my favorite game, I'm going to bring it. Think about how it's going to land. The second C is consumption. There are a number of different ways to look at consumption. I used to run a board game night. It was a work board game night, and it was about once a month. It was going for a couple years, actually. I did 2 things to help run this board game night, this board game club. I did 2 things. I didn't have to name the club. Someone else took care of that for us. It was the Get Back to Work board game club. So I'm just decided to offer the name up for us. So it was very nice of them. The first thing I did to help manage the board game nights is just schedule them. I put them on the schedule, decided we actually went back and forth each month between going in conference rooms after work or going to a restaurant or a bar or someplace like that. And I also would manage the food. When I chose what food to get, obviously you don't want to be the guy that's ordering outside food to a bar that sells their own food if they don't think kindly about that, so just use common sense there. But for the conference room, I would often get pizza. This is a little bit controversial because you don't want greasy pizza fingers getting all over a nice board game. I thought this was okay. I knew this was okay because the people going to the board game night tended to be more polite. They're very considerate. It's very important. You want to be considerate about the games, not just for your own games, but I wanted to encourage other people to bring games and should make sure they got played. I didn't want someone to think they're going to bring a game and they're going to get pizza fingers all over it. So I wouldn't have done that if I didn't have napkins, if I didn't have all the materials needed so people could be polite with their food fingers. I didn't go as far as to get Doritos. That would have been a bridge too far. But what I did also get, for example, got Subway. Cut them up the subs into the 6-inch sizes that, like, they'll do like the platter. That's usually pretty nice. I didn't do this for a board game night, but a lot of restaurants like Chick-fil-A will offer things like a chicken nugget platter, but be careful if you have anyone allergic to peanuts in that one, because you don't want someone to die at your board game night. Bad idea. I will mention too that if you're going to a bar, I have to consider the fact that a few people might have a few drinks, might be a little bit more tired, a little bit less likely to engage in something super crunchy if they've had a few drinks. That becomes a little bit of a tough mix. Another story, sometimes all friends are just passing through. I had one time when I had a few friends that were going to be over for about 8 hours or so, like an afternoon and an evening, and then they had to keep traveling. I was so excited to bust out Spirit Island, and I thought it would be such a hit with my friends that I decided to bust it out in that context. Now, there are two problems with this. First one, it took up a lot of time. But the second one, in regards to consumption, while I was thinking this would be a great game for them, they were thinking that there were new legal changes that allowed them to consume edibles. And that really was not a good mix with Spirit Island. They're getting in touch with their spirits in a different way. Everyone just getting tired of losing pretty quickly, and then that was it. Kind of a waste of time there. I've had a lot of board game nights. Not all of them have been successful, but I think I can share more experiences and give better advice because I've seen the ups and the downs. So I'll leave that as food for thought. Get it? Food for thought? Consumption? All right, and here we go. Here's the last C. I don't know why I feel in the urge to do this. The last C is the context. I mentioned before how you have to plan your game night a little bit differently if you're at a bar versus at a conference room, or like maybe you're pulling a room at a library or going to a game store. Think about what people are going to expect and try to meet that. If you're at a bar, you're not going to want to take a giant board, again with a huge board like War of the Ring, and then lay it down on a bar. That's not going to work. You want to do card games there. If you're going to have too many people for one game, that's something you want to consider. You may need to have 2 board games going at a given point, especially if you are going for more of the strategy type games, more of a traditional board game night. You have more than, say, 5 players. 6 becomes a little bit touchy for a lot of games. Maybe you want to split into 2 games and have them going at once, and if you want to do that, you need to make sure someone is there to teach the other game that's not you. I've tried to teach 2 games at once. It can be done. I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you want to play a game yourself. Maybe you can have your golden child, if they really like teaching games, which many of them do, be the one to actually run the second game during board game day. You may want to have an appetizer type game. I'm really confusing all the food terms here. When you're setting your board game night up, not everyone's necessarily going to be there on time. In fact, some people might be there, or they might be busy doing something else when you really want to get started. This can go for the family party, or for when people are trying to get out of work, or people are traveling and they're maybe got in traffic on the way to the game store. You have an appetizer type game. Suro is a great example of this. The rounds are fast enough and you can have up to 8 players. Once someone soldiers up, they only need to wait like a few minutes before they can get into another round of the game. Coup is a decent example of this, so that will linger a little bit longer. Think about if you want to have an appetizer game and then once everyone's there or you're done waiting for people, you can get into, say, the main course games, which might be more of the thinky strategy type games, the ones that actually take up table space. And maybe they'll have time at the end of the night and people really want to keep playing a game, but you know you're running on fumes. You best have something like Cockroach Poker, which could be an appetizer game or could be a dessert game. Just get out that last little bit of laughy energy, and it's a little bit more fun after people have played a few games. Monikers is a great one because you technically don't even need to follow the rules of monikers. Most people just use the cards and try to play the game round by round as a team all together. You'll probably want to choose the games in advance, but not choose it down to the game. If you're having a board game night, you may want to bring 2 or 3 different games. See if anyone has a preference and wants to choose some. If you have someone bringing a game, one recommendation I have is to learn how to teach it yourself in case they're not that great of a teacher or didn't really prep enough. At least be someone not necessarily to take the teach from them, but they help fill in the gaps if needed, especially once the game gets going. Takes a little bit extra work, but I think it's worth it. If your golden child arrives, one of the ways you may make the game night especially fun for the golden child is maybe they can help pick out a game. Instead of having them bring a game, maybe you can take a walk through the game shelves that you got standing right behind
Jackson
you.
War Game
But if
Field
you do
Room.
walk through your board game library with the golden child, don't let them recommend something that's just a complete flop. Try to nudge towards something that's actually more reasonable. So those are my tips. The 3 C's of hosting a board game night. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts are, or if you have any other strategies you use for board game nights. Until next time, this is Jackson Warfield's Game Room.